There is no southern U.S. border anymore. I mean, literally, there is a place we call the border, and there's a place where our jurisdiction ends. But illegal immigrants have been not only crossing in waves by the thousands, they've actually been crossing back and forth as if there is no border. Now, the Democrats have tried to use an infrastructure bill, as they've been, to give a pathway to citizenship, which says to me that not only is there no southern U.S. border, as Border Patrol agents on horseback desperately try to stop the wave of illegal immigrants coming in, which they're failing at. No disrespect. They're just not able to stop this. The Democrats are trying to give pathways to citizenship to many of these people who come in illegally. Well, we got a weird story with all this. The Senate parliamentarian says you can't do this. It violates the rules. And I'm just like, you know what, man, there is so much wrong. Our government is so insanely dysfunctional. I would go on to be like, my friends, the empire has fallen. It fell already. It's just like when you see a supernova, when a star goes supernova, you don't see it right away. It takes a long time for that light to finally make it to Earth. And so then one day, I think it was like in the 1700s, there's a big supernova in the sky. And people are like, what could that be? It probably took place millions upon millions and millions of years ago. And we are only finally seeing that light reach us. So the physical effect and everything we're seeing, long since gone. When it comes to the U.S. and what's happening with Democrats trying to use infrastructure bills to bypass legislation, I'm like, yo, let's talk about the state of the republic. How about that? Tens of thousands of illegal immigrants going back and forth as if there's no border. Border Patrol agents literally on horseback with, looks like he's got a lasso or something and he's trying to wrangle. This is insane. So the border is crumbling. You've got Joe Biden coming out talking about mandates, completely excluding the Republican states. When Joe Biden went on TV and said, our patience is wearing thin, he was specifically talking to red states. Why? Blue states are substantially more likely to be vaccinated. Red states are not. So when he says we are losing our patience, he's talking about with you in the not blue states. Well, I guess there's still a lot of people in the blue states who aren't vaccinated and maybe conservative, but you can see he's not a unifying president. Take all this into consideration. And now let's talk about the current state of the republic. While the border has become completely porous, you have states like California, sanctuary states, as it were, that allow people to come across the border and in some instances even get free government services. Well, you know how Congress works? When the census happens, they track how many people live there, not how many citizens. So it doesn't matter if you vote. You see, this is one of the issues I actually will state with the Electoral College, an exploit being put in place by California. The Electoral College is not about popular vote, as you know, or the presidential election is not about popular vote. So here's what happens. California, I think it was according to the Center for Immigration Studies, it might have been a Heritage Foundation, said that they get one extra electoral vote and one extra congressional seat because of how many illegal immigrants they have living in their state. This has been a long time coming. When California gets disproportional power in the federal government over other states and then votes to ban your guns and things like that because they're letting non-citizens in, the census then calculates them and gives California more congressional power. They are exploiting the system. My friends, the republic is falling. A republic if you can keep it. So here we are. The Democrats, unable to pass legislation. And that's a good thing they can't. It's a good thing we're deadlocked in Congress. It is. Let me explain. This nation was founded on some very, very brilliant principles. The structure itself is remarkable. 3 branches, checks and balances. Well, when Congress is split and can't pass bills, it's a good thing. It means that they need to compromise with other parts of the country to come to some kind of position where we can all agree. If the Democrats can't get what they want, well, then so be it. You need cooperation from red states. And then these leftists come out and say, but they're a minority. Exactly. The founding fathers knew 2 very important things. I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what's for lunch. A republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. And that's the well-armed lamb contesting the vote. The reason why we do allow for minority opposition is to prevent collapse of the republic. Because if you have 40% consistently being shoved out of the conversation, eventually they say, we're going to walk and go do something on our own. And then you lose out, which means there must be minority representation. California used to be one of these desolate states that had disproportionate representation. And then they became massively populated. And now they have disproportionate representation based on the illegal immigration they allow. Here's the current state of the republic. The Democrats, knowing they have no ability to pass any of these bills without compromise, which they should be doing, have decided to use infrastructure as a way to bypass this, notably giving citizenship to non-citizens through an infrastructure bill. Well, here's another place where there's a broken system. The Senate parliamentarian can just be like, you are not allowed to vote on this. Therein lies the problem. Who is this Senate parliamentarian, the Senate's nonpartisan interpreter of rules, who is allowed to strike down legislation? At the same time, who are the Democrats to try and manipulate bypassing what would effectively be a quorum? They need 60 votes to bypass the filibuster by using this manipulation tactic. Okay, well, they failed in this regard, and so maybe the Senate parliamentarian is doing something right. But let's talk about the current state of executive decree. You know, it's really weird that the people claiming to the people that are supporting government mandates are claiming to be anti-authoritarian. It's just these people have no mirrors in their homes. They can't understand. It's like, do you know what authoritarian means? And when you're like, the sovereign has decreed, we're anti-fascist. I'm like, you should probably check the definitions on those things, because I don't think, or what's the line? You keep on using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. That's where we're at. The other part of the current state of the crumbling American empire, the republic, is that Joe Biden simply decrees and then says, peasants, if you are negatively impacted by my decree, perhaps you can attempt to complain to the courts. So the new rules never actually go through Congress. Joe Biden just simply, here's what happened. Joe Biden was like, eviction moratorium. All of a sudden, everyone's like, I can't evict people. Supreme Court gets involved and says, President Biden, what you did is illegal. You cannot do this. We are hereby voiding your eviction moratorium. It must go through Congress. So Joe Biden goes to Congress and he's like, guys, can you guys pass a bill to make it so people can't be evicted? Well, Republicans and even many Democrats were like, that would effectively be the state seizing private property. So no, we're not going to do that. So Joe Biden goes, well, if Congress won't do it, I'll bang the gavel and rule by decree, instituting another eviction moratorium, bypassing the Supreme Court and the legislature. And he already bypassed the legislature once. And what happens? The Democrats celebrate. We're anti-authoritarian, but it's good that the sovereign has decreed for our rules. Only those with standing are allowed to challenge that. And so they sue. And the Supreme Court said, hey, Biden, we already told you you couldn't do this. And you went, oh, okay. So here's where we are. The president imposes an executive order everyone must follow. There's a video of a nurse, and she's saying something like, my boss told me, look, Joe Biden came and made a decision, so we have to follow it. And it's like, no, you don't. That's not how this country works. It's not how it's ever worked. But people have given up. And that's it. They've got it. I can say, at least fortunately, the Democrats weren't able to use a spending bill to legislate, at least in this capacity, but they're still going to do it anyway. When the Democrats across the board are breaking our system of government, when they are cheering for a broken and porous border where people are freely walking back and forth between, I think it's time you realize something, my friends. If a person can walk across the border back and forth, effectively, there is no border. And if there is no border, then you basically don't have a country. Because where does your jurisdiction begin and end if people can just freely walk into your country without any regard for the law, without any regard for specific jurisdictions, places like Texas, for instance, and for government spending and taxation? If the citizenry are paying taxes for specific services, defense, in some instances, healthcare, Medicaid and stuff like that, and for border protection, and it's not being taken care of, it's crumbling. So just consider this. Rule by decree from the president, bypassing the courts on the 3 occasions in the past couple of months. Democrats trying to bypass congressional limitations by using spending bills for our budget to institute legislation, bypassing any kind of compromise. And 3, a broken border. Then on top of that, let's take a look at, the Afghanistan failures. Let's take a look at critical race theory in government. At what point do you just finally say, it looks like this country is gone? Yeah. One story I covered, and you have to go back to pull up all that data. 37.2% of the American population wants their specific region to secede from the Union. It varies from place to place. So there's 5 regions, and in the Pacific region, for instance, which is I think it's Alaska, California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii, which I don't think is fair because Alaska and Hawaii shouldn't be there. It's like 47% of Democrats that want to secede from the Union. If you did California, Oregon, and Washington, I'm sure it would be like 70%. The South, southern states, it's like, I think 66% Republican want to secede from the Union. And there's predominantly Republicans in the area. And on the West Coast, it's predominantly Democrats, which means it's probably disproportionate in that if you were to go by individual, not by political party, I'd be willing to bet the West Coast is like 60% secede and the South is like 70% secede. This country is about to break apart. Let me show you the video, my friend. Shocking video. Bill Malugan, breaking. I am absolutely stunned by what I am witnessing right now. We are on a boat in the Rio Grande near the Del Rio International Bridge, and we are watching as masses of hundreds of migrants walk across the river from Mexico and stream into the U.S. illegally. It's crazy. It's crazy not just because of these videos of hundreds of migrants. It's crazy because they're going back. I don't know if YouTube would allow me to show you the photos of the border agents on horseback with looks like a lasso or something, and they're trying to catch these people. You know what? Let's just pull it up. If we get taken down, we get taken down. Welcome to the real world. Border agents on horseback round up Haitian migrants after closing Rio Grande crossing, where 15,000 have congregated under a Texas bridge. More than 300 arrived back in Haiti as up to 8 flights a day are scheduled to deal with the crisis. Do you think we can sustain ferrying all of these people on planes back to Haiti as they just continue to pour in? I don't think so. I think it's only getting worse. Wait till you see these photographs. They say, Mexico border, where nearly 15,000 migrants set up camps as they waited to enter the country. More than 300 Haitians have returned Sunday. More than half of the 327 Haitians that were deported on Sunday were under the age of 5 and were born abroad, according to AFP. They said they were forced to sleep on the floor of plastic tarps as they were being processed. Forced to? You mean chose to? And these people are coming here by choice. Do they expect that we're going to open up the Ritz-Carlton for them once they arrive? No. The U.S. is just... Our resources, our time and our energy, it's being exploited. It is crumbling before our very eyes. And don't get me wrong. I can sit here and complain about how the threat of China, but their Evergrande housing real estate market is crumbling and their economy is in shambles. The global economy is about to burst. So what did I do? I don't know. I bought Bitcoin, I guess. Take a look at this. I don't know what this is. Not a lasso or something, but he's swinging. Look, this is crazy. Look at this photo. The guy, you can't see his eyes. Got the head. It's like out of a movie on horseback. Here's a dude. Look what they're carrying. These people are carrying takeout. No joke. This guy has a bag of takeout. It's like a styrofoam food carrier as the border agents are trying to stop them. These photos are insane. Look at this. They're carrying food. And so they're grabbing, the photo just says the border agents are grabbing the migrants. What we heard is that these people, because they couldn't buy food living under a bridge, would just go back to Mexico, buy food, and then bring it back. And there's no border, my friend. There's just none. Here's people being stopped by border agents on horseback. Here's the guy, they're trying to catch him, and a lot of them are carrying personal belongings, it looks like. But look at some of these bags. It's food and drinks. They're going back to Mexico, getting food and drinks, and bringing them back. And I'll tell you, Border Patrol is now hiring civilians to help agents respond to the migrant surge. Well, certain sects of the Libertarian Party are probably celebrating. I've had a conversation with many libertarians, like the big L party libertarians, who are like, do you believe in borders? And I was like, yes, because if you don't have borders, then you have no country. And they said, so you think an imaginary line just separates people? They should be allowed to, listen, yes, I do. Like the imaginary line of my property. Stupidest argument. I'm sorry. When they're like, it's just an imaginary line, people should be allowed to go and do what they want. I'm like, yeah, to varying degrees, perhaps. But it's an imaginary line keeping you off of my property and outside of my house. There's what? Well, you have a physical door. Well, what if my door is open because it's a beautiful spring day and I decide to let fresh air come in? Are you now allowed to cross the threshold into my home? No. And you know what the left and these libertarians have in common is when they say things like, private property is different or, oh, no, well, you have a right to your house, but a country is different. And I'm like, dude, the country, it's a community of people who agree on a set of values and rules to abide by. In the United States, for better or for worse, the libertarians don't like this one, but we pay taxes. So if I'm paying taxes for border security and for sanctuary within the borders of this country, I expect that to be upheld. When our borders break and we're paying money to maintain this border security and now it's broken, the system is breaking. When the politicians can no longer function properly, when our Congress, executive branch, and Supreme Court have gone completely dysfunctional, I'm like, yo, hope you're ready for what comes next. It's entirely possible. A strong man comes in 2024. Perhaps it's an older, wiser, and thinner Donald Trump. We've all seen that photo of him losing weight. And maybe he then forces everything back into alignment. Or maybe he comes in attempting to force it back into alignment and the left goes insane because they're weird cultist authoritarians and they just destroy everything. I'll put it this way. It's like a Jenga tower, you know? And at a certain point, when the Supreme Court can't enforce its own orders against the president, he ignores them. When the legislature tries to bypass the system of governance created in the Constitution by just using spending bills to bypass legislation, then we're falling apart. When the borders are completely porous, when half the country hates the other half, when we have two very distinct cultural identities. I went to a bar the other day. It wasn't a bar. It was like a lounge. I was hanging out and I was talking to a local. Someone recognized me and they're like, oh, yeah, we were talking. And I was saying how, I lived in the Philly area and decided to move out to West Virginia because it's just there's more stuff. I like the way people live here. And it was fascinating. The guy was mentioning to me that he did the same thing, that, you live in these urban environments and you realize how insane everyone's gotten, so you want to come out here. Now, the big risk is, as we point out, people from blue areas complaining about blue areas coming into these areas and then voting for blue policies, which I will not do. I'd either not vote or I would just vote for, hey, you keep it the way it is. I suppose it's nice. And I thought about something. Out here in West Virginia, it's not a bunch of right-wing nut jobs. It's the craziest thing. I mean, the media would tell you that. Out here, it's strangely a lot of moderate libertarian types, meaning leave me alone, let me do my thing. I'll leave you alone, yet let you do your thing. We believe in certain traditional values, but we're also pretty relaxed and want you to be happy and live your life like the Constitution says. And that's or the Declaration and the Constitution and the Founding Fathers. When you go back and look at the ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, classical liberalism. That's what it was. We had freedom of religion. You basically had a bunch of people who were Christians who believed this nation was protected by God, telling people they could worship whoever they wanted. It was presumed they would worship, God and for the most part be Christian, but they also created space saying like, look, even if you're not, we want you to be able to live your life and be happy. And so it's amazing when you come to somewhere like West Virginia and the people out here are like, I'll say what I want to say. I'll do what I want to do so long as I don't violate your rights. Meaning I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to infringe on your property. I'm going to mind my own business. And it's really weird that I can talk to people and they're not far right. They're not anti-establishment. They're not anti-government. They're just basically like live and let live. It's the craziest thing. They oppose vax mandates. They oppose mask mandates. Not everybody. It was really funny. I went to the casino this weekend and there's a guy wearing a mask. And I'm like, the crazy thing is the casino actually bans masks. Some people still want to wear them and the casino lets them do it. That's West Virginia for you. I'll tell you one of the craziest things. In Texas, there was a restaurant that kicked people out because they were wearing masks. And I'm like, that's dumb. If somebody wants to wear a mask, I don't care. Now, to be fair, if somebody comes into my business wearing a mask, you know what the funny thing is? It used to be the presumption was like, why are you wearing a mask in my establishment? Take the mask off because robbery. So I can understand that in Texas. It's like, dude, you can't wear masks in here. We need to be able to see your face because we don't want to be victims of crimes. They make it seem like it's about the pandemic or whatever. Now, to some extent, I'd be like, whatever. But the point is, I bring it up just to show there are two distinct cultures in this country that cannot coexist. There are people on the left that would say that you and I are radicalized. Interesting. Radicalized. What does that mean? Well, my belief structure, my principles, and my values are based upon the several hundred years of American governance and the improvements made to this country over a long period of time. I believe the founding fathers had a lot of bad things about them, but they were products of their time. We criticized those things. They were really bad. Slavery was abhorrent. It's an evil. And we destroyed it. We actually fought a war, a very bloody war over it. So you can see that over time, this country became fantastic. Well, I believe in those values. I would like them to persist because it created one of the most tolerant countries on the planet in the history of mankind. But then there's another problem. The tolerance also created a large sect, half the country at this point, of authoritarians. You let evil fester for too long, and this is what you get. And then the republic becomes threatened. So where does that leave us? I will tell you again. If people can cross back and forth from the border without impedance, there's no border. It's like crossing the street. Do we say there's a hard border? You can't cross. No, you can cross street back and forth. We don't call it a border. We call it a street. So what? It's just a river. People are walking back and forth for carry out. Congress is broken. Senate's broken. The presidency is broken. And here you go, my friends. There's no border. That means there's no country. Maybe in 2022 something will change. But please, as if Republicans would do anything. Sorry for being so pessimistic, but maybe if we get some populist Republicans in, things might change. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. I'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out.